Let me play you something that Barack Obama said last week about Osama bin Laden and terrorism, and ask you to comment on the other side.
What would be important would be for us to do it in a way that allows the entire world to understand the murderous acts that he's engaged in, and not to make him into a martyr, and to assure that the United States government is abiding by basic conventions that would strengthen our hand in the broader battle against terrorism.
What's wrong with what he said? The Republicans just climbed all over him after that.
Well, I think Senator Obama had a really bad week last week when it comes to national security and the war on terror. I think you had him saying that we ought to go back to the days of 1993 when we treated terrorism as a law enforcement matter, completely ignoring, frankly, the 9/11 Commission report. I think you ought to go back and read the 9/11 Commission report about the extent to which the way we were dealing with terrorism in the decade of the 90s really made it impossible for us to, end attacks like the ones that we had against us, the USS Cole, against our embassies. And it's the fact that we've stopped dealing with it as a law enforcement matter, that we have actually gone after al-Qaeda. Those are the kinds of policies that have kept us safe for the last 7 years. I think, you also had Senator Obama last week praising the Supreme Court decision, the Boumediene decision, which has, for the first time in our history, extended habeas corpus rights, not just to foreigners on foreign soil, but to terrorists, to enemy combatants that we've captured fighting against us.
Supported by a lot of Americans.
Well, it was a 5-4 decision, but it was a misinterpretation of the Constitution. I mean, I think a situation in which a terrorist, when captured, can say, I'm not going to speak to you until I've got a lawyer, until I've got, habeas corpus rights.
So far, we've had 3 Supreme Court decisions in a row, all deciding on the side of extending legal rights to those being held.
And I think, Andrea, though, it's important to note that in each of those cases we've had very strong and important dissents from people like Justice Scalia, Justice Roberts. I would highly recommend the 2 dissents in this particular case to anybody who questions the dangerous territory the Supreme Court's getting into now.
Let me just briefly ask you about Iran, because there's a lot of talk about what Israel did last week with its military exercise, a lot of talk about an October surprise, about some sort of military strike on Iran against Iranian suspected nuclear activity. Is that even feasible? And what would be the impact of that?
Well, I think that, it's absolutely clear that neither the United States nor Israel can tolerate a nuclear-armed Iran. And I think that what you're seeing on Israel's part is a very clear effort to note, that to make clear that they won't tolerate it, that they can't stand for it, that it's an existential threat to them. One of the most interesting things I saw this week, though, was some terrific reporting by Glenn Kessler in the Washington Post, where he had gone and talked to our European allies, those who've been engaged in diplomacy with us on the issue of Iranian nuclear weapons. And they said to him, both for attribution and anonymously, how concerned they are about Senator Obama's commitment to talking to the Iranians with no preconditions. That, in fact, Senator Obama's really sort of naive approach to the issue of Iran will set the diplomacy back and potentially set American national security back.
Wouldn't the Israelis need American help to take out Iranian anti-aircraft defenses?
Well, I'm not an expert on Israeli defense, but I think clearly it is in both Israel's interest and the our American national security interest that Iran not be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon. And I certainly hope that whoever is commander-in-chief at the time that decision's got to be made makes the decision that's right for America's national security interests.